These rappers was Redman of the duo Method Man and Redman. They making a song. Method Man says, I like MC Hammer. He cool. Redman said, man, MC Hammer, corny. They stopped the track. The producer go, what'd you say? Redman said, I said he corny. The producer said, I'll just take that part out for you. Redman said, no, keep it. I said he...
He went from pulling in $33 million a year to losing it all overnight. But MC Hammer's downfall wasn't just about wild spending. It was a twisted mix of betrayal, greed, and street-level danger that the media never told the full truth about. Behind the shiny suits, gold chains, and those million-dollar cribs, the streets of Oakland were whispering a whole different story. Even Hammer, the man who could make the whole world dance, couldn't spin out of this one. Before we get into the shocking collapse, we gotta see just how sky-high Hammer climbed, because this wasn't regular success, this was legendary status. He didn't just break records, he owned the charts, the airwaves, and the whole vibe of the early 90s. But you know the saying, the higher the rise, the harder the crash. Stanley Kirk Burrell came into the world on March 30th, 1962 in Oakland, California, a city that can make or break you fast. Growing up in East Oakland with 8 siblings, life hit hard. His mom held it down as a single parent, while his dad worked as a warehouse supervisor and even ran a gambling spot on the side. Hammer's childhood was surrounded by struggle, poverty, and survival, the kind of environment that can crush a dream before it even starts. But Stanley, he was built different. From a young age, he showed that hustler's mindset that would later define his rise and his downfall. He started selling stray baseballs outside the Oakland Coliseum during athletics games, flipping anything he could just to bring in a few dollars. That grind didn't go unnoticed. Team owner Charles O. Finley spotted his hustle and hired him as a bat boy and clubhouse assistant from 1973 to 1980. Inside that clubhouse, legends like Reggie Jackson started calling him Hammer, saying he looked just like baseball icon Hank Hammer and Aaron. That nickname stuck, and eventually it became world famous. Back then, though, he was just a kid chasing a dream, trying to survive the tough streets of Oakland with nothing but hustle and heart. After graduating from McClamon's High School in 1980, Stanley Burrell didn't waste time chasing his next move. He hit up community college for a bit, then joined the U.S. Navy in 1981, serving as a petty officer third-class aviation storekeeper until his honorable discharge in 1984. But even while rocking that uniform, the music never stopped calling. On ships and bases, he was sharpening his rhymes, rocking small crowds, and calling himself MC, short for Master of Ceremonies. He even formed a Christian rap group called the Holy Ghost Boys, proving his faith and flow could go hand in hand. Those Navy years were where the seeds of his empire started to sprout, not in studios or labels, but from pure grind and self-belief. When he got out, Hammer didn't wait for a label to save him. He made his own lane. In the mid-1980s, he borrowed $20,000 from 2 Oakland A's legends, Mike Davis and Dwayne Murphy, and launched his own production company, Busted Productions, straight out of his basement. That's right, no fancy setup, no big budget, just raw ambition and a dream too big to ignore. Then came his independent debut, Feel My Power, 1986. The album moved over 60,000 copies all by himself. No label, no backing, just street-level hustle. With singles like Ring 'em, the Bay Area couldn't stop playing it. Clubs were lit, fans were talking, and industry heads started paying attention. He wasn't mainstream yet, but everyone could see this kid from Oakland had star power. And it wasn't long before the big players came knocking. By 1988, Capitol Records signed Hammer with a jaw-dropping $1.75 million advance, a massive deal for a hip-hop artist back when the genre was still fighting to be taken seriously. They re-released Feel My Power as Let's Get It Started in 1988, and boom, the album went multi-platinum. Tracks like Pump It Up and the title song brought a wild new sound, a fusion of rap, funk, and dance that no one had seen before. Hammer's vibe was unmatched. His flashy outfits, tight choreography, and positive lyrics separated him from legends like Run DMC and LL Cool J. He wasn't just spitting bars, he was a showman, a performer who understood that music wasn't just to be heard, it was to be felt and seen. His concerts were energy explosions, his moves electric, his charisma undeniable. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared the world for what came next. In 1990, MC Hammer dropped Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him, and it didn't just break records, it shattered the game. The album sold over 18 million copies worldwide, becoming the first hip-hop record to go diamond. 18 million units, let that number sink in. It was a takeover no one saw coming. 18 million records in 1990 from a genre that mainstream America still side-eyed with suspicion. That wasn't just a hit, that was a cultural explosion. MC Hammer didn't drop an album, he dropped a worldwide movement. At the heart of it all was that generation-defining anthem, You Can't Touch This. Sampling Rick James' Super Freak, it blasted up to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and turned Hammer into a global superstar overnight. And he didn't stop there. The album also featured Pray, which hit number 2, and a soulful cover of Have You Seen Her that showed just how versatile his sound could be. Hammer's creative use of samples, flipping everything from the Jackson 5 to Prince, mixed with his high-energy choreography like the iconic Hammer Dance and the Running Man, made him more than a rapper, he became a cultural icon. Kids in schoolyards were busting out the Hammer Dance, trying to move just like him. Adults were rocking those shiny parachute pants like a badge of honor. And when those opening notes hit, stop, Hammer time, the whole world knew exactly what was coming next. His sound was everywhere, his image unavoidable. It was pure domination. Hammer went on to scoop up 3 Grammys in 1990, including Best R&B Song and Best Rap Solo Performance. He didn't stop there. He stacked American awards, a People's Choice Award, and more recognition than most artists could dream of. His world tour was massive, selling out arenas and setting new standards for hip-hop performances. And the empire kept growing. He had a line of merchandise, Mattel dolls, and even a Saturday morning cartoon, Hammerman, 1991, bringing his image straight into living rooms across America. By 1991, Forbes crowned him as one of the richest entertainers alive, with a net worth of $33 million and pulling in around $30 million a year from music, tours, and major brand endorsements. Hammer wasn't just famous, he was everywhere.
And I've always been an admirer of Hammer because of the way he did it. We were at odds, so to speak, at a young time, but it wasn't like violence or anger.
Pepsi, KFC, and those massive world tours, Hammer had corporate giants backing him and arenas packed from Tokyo to New York. When you adjust his $33 million annual income to today's money, that's roughly $70 to $76 million a year. That's not just rapper money, that's superstar status. He wasn't just topping the hip-hop charts, he was standing toe-to-toe with Hollywood legends, rock icons, and pop royalty, and he was winning big. Then came Too Legit to Quit in 1991, another monster hit. The album moved over 5 million copies, with tracks like the title anthem, Too Legit to Quit, hitting number 5 on the charts, and Adam's Groove climbing to number 7 in the US and number 4 in the UK. The music videos? Next-level productions. They weren't just clips, they were mini-movies, packed with wild choreography, top-tier sets, and cameos from stars like Jim Belushi and Queen Latifah. Millions were poured into these visuals, setting the bar for music video production that rap had never seen before. Hammer wasn't just dropping songs, he was building an entertainment empire. Every move he made screamed ambition. His performances, his fashion, his storytelling. It was art, business, and showmanship all rolled into one. He turned hip-hop into something larger than life, something that even the mainstream couldn't ignore. But behind the lights, the cameras, and the wild success, there was a truth most people missed. The parachute pants, the dancing, the clean image, they covered up for a tougher reality. Hammer wasn't just some flashy rapper playing dress-up. He was Oakland through and through, and those streets, they don't forget their own. Some people started testing him, thinking that the flashy moves meant he was soft. They learned real quick, Hammer wasn't to be played with. He had respect where it counted, and his street ties ran deep. Still, as the fame exploded and the money poured in faster than anyone could count it, the empire began to strain under its own weight. Hammer had the world in his hands, millions in the bank, every door opened, but he was about to make a series of brutal financial moves that would tear it all down. Because one thing's for sure, making money and keeping money are two very different games. And MC Hammer was about to learn that lesson in the most public and devastating way imaginable. The spectacular collapse, it didn't happen overnight, but when it hit hard. When you're pulling in $30 million a year, living like a king, and the whole world's chanting your name, it's easy to start believing the cash will never stop coming. You start thinking you're untouchable, unstoppable, and every wild decision feels like genius in the moment, even if it looks crazy in hindsight. And MC Hammer made those wild calls on a level that became legendary for all the wrong reasons. At the top of his fame, swimming in money most people couldn't even imagine, Hammer started spending faster than he was earning. His lifestyle went beyond luxury. It was pure extravagance. Every move screamed success and excess. The centerpiece of it all, his mansion in Fremont, California, became both his ultimate trophy and his biggest mistake. In October 1990, Hammer dropped $5 million on a 12.5-acre hilltop estate overlooking his old East Oakland neighborhood. He picked that spot for a reason. He wanted to see, every single day, how far he'd come from the rough streets where he once sold baseballs as a kid. It was symbolic, powerful, and soon destructive. But that original 11,000-square-foot mansion, it wasn't nearly enough for Hammer's vision. So what did he do? He demolished the whole thing and started from scratch, like someone building a palace straight out of a movie. What rose in its place wasn't a home, it was a monument to excess, a 40,000-square-foot fortress dripping with gold, luxury, and ego. He built fountains, pools, marble floors, recording studios, the kind of setup only someone who believed the money would never run dry could dream up. Hammer's Fremont estate became a symbol, not just of success, but of how fast fortune can flip when you mix heart, pride, and limitless spending. That mansion wasn't just where he lived, it was where his downfall began. The renovations alone, they ran anywhere between $12 million and $30 million. Yeah, you heard that right, up to $30 million just to rebuild and customize the mansion. Hammer turned that Fremont estate into something out of a dream or a fantasy too wild to believe. Visitors were welcomed with gold-plated gates engraved with the words Hammer Time, a bold reminder that they were stepping into his world. Inside, the place was straight up unreal. He dropped $2 million just on Italian marble floors, imported directly from the mountains of Italy, because regular marble just wasn't enough. 2 swimming pools sparkled on the property, and get this, one of them was shaped like his iconic parachute pants. It was the kind of flex that had the entire industry talking. But Hammer didn't stop there. The mansion had its own bowling alley, baseball diamond, tennis courts, a 17-car garage, a recording studio, and even a rehearsal hall for his massive crew. There was also a 37-seat theater, an exercise room with 2 saunas, a media room, a guardhouse, a pool house, and 4 dishwashers. Apparently, 3 just didn't cut it when you were living life at Hammer's level. The tech setup was futuristic for its time. Computerized thermostats, a marble steam room, and the most outrageous feature of all, a gold-plated hot tub and toilet right in the bedroom. Everywhere you looked, the mansion screamed money, fame, and confidence turned all the way up. And just when you thought it couldn't get more over the top, he had marble statues of himself placed throughout the property. Because let's be real, when you're MC Hammer at the height of your fame, why wouldn't you turn yourself into a monument?
But Hammer used to, people used to like test them a little bit and just to see if he was, dancing Hammer. And a few times in life, I've heard people tell stories like they caught the wrath of MC Hammer ain't no punk.
The upkeep alone on Hammer's mansion was wild, between $500,000 and $1 million a year. He even had a staff of 200 people just to keep the estate running, $500,000 just to keep the lights on and the lawn trimmed. Hammer later admitted he barely even used half the mansion. Rooms sat empty, the marble steam room untouched, million-dollar furniture collecting dust. It wasn't comfort, it was access just to prove he could. And that mansion? Just a start. Hammer's car collection looked like something out of a billionaire's fantasy, around 20 luxury rides, including a Lamborghini, a Ferrari worth $85,000, several Mercedes-Benz models, classic antiques, and a stretch limo for those flashy entrances. Commercial flights? Not a chance. Hammer flew private. Reports say he even owned a Boeing 727 and 2 helicopters, because why pick one when you can have both and a backup? Then came his next flex, the horses. In 1991, Hammer launched Oaktown Stable, sinking an estimated $1.2 to $5 million into thoroughbred racehorses, with each horse costing up to $1 million. Believe it or not, a few actually won races, but most of it, just more money fly out the door as Hammer's empire got bigger, louder, and closer to collapse. Hammer's racehorses weren't just for show. His filly Light Light actually won the 1991 Kentucky Oaks, pulling in over $1.2 million in winnings. Another horse, Dance Floor, even placed third in the 1992 1992 Kentucky Derby, but those victories couldn't keep up with the insane cost. Training, stables, and upkeep burned through cash faster than any race ever could. Off the track, Hammer's spending went into overdrive. He splurged on custom jewelry, designer fits, and lavish gifts for friends and family. We're talking cars, diamonds, the works. His tours were full-on productions, packed with massive sets, fire choreography, and dozens of dancers, each show costing millions to pull off. But the biggest drain wasn't the bling or the tours, it was his crew. Out of loyalty to his Oakland roots, Hammer hired about 200 people, many of them friends and family, giving them steady paychecks even if their jobs barely existed. They weren't just staff, they were people he wanted to help. But that loyalty came with a heavy price. His monthly payroll hit $500,000, adding up to $6 million a year. When Hammer hit the road, he didn't travel light. He'd bring 40 people along, covering hotels, meals, and transport for everyone. His generosity was real, but the costs? Unstoppable. Moving around with a 200-person entourage wasn't cheap. It was like traveling with a small army. Hammer defended the costs, saying he was changing lives, lifting people out of poverty, and giving real opportunities to those who'd never had them. His heart was in the right place, but good intentions don't cover million-dollar bills. By the mid-90s, hip-hop had changed fast. Gangster rap was taking over, bringing a raw, street-heavy sound that made Hammer's pop-friendly, dance-driven style seem old school. Trying to keep up, he dropped The Funky Headhunter in 1994. It went platinum, but still fell short of his earlier domination. Later albums like Inside Out 1995 and Family Affair 1998 barely made a dent, struggling under label shifts, overexposure, and even public feuds with rappers like Redman and Jay-Z who mocked his commercial sound. The fame was fading, and so was the money. What once poured in like a flood was now just a trickle. But here's the real issue. While his income fell off, his expenses stayed sky high. The mansion still cost nearly $1 million a year to maintain, and that $500,000 monthly payroll for his crew never stopped. Hammer's empire was bleeding cash, and fast. The cars still needed gas, insurance, and constant upkeep. The horses still needed feeding, training, and care. What once worked with $30 million a year coming in quickly turned into a financial nightmare when those earnings dropped to almost nothing. To make things worse, Hammer had put his finances in his brother's hands, someone with no real accounting experience. There were no savings, no investments, no financial plan, just non-stop spending and faith that the money would never stop flowing. Hammer lived by a money is meant to be spent mindset, convinced the next hit or tour would refill the bank. But soon, the bills piled up. Unpaid loans, lawsuits from employees, tax liens from the government, and even copyright settlements, like the one with Rick James over Super Freak, drained his remaining cash. By April 1st, 1996, it all came crashing down. Hammer filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Oakland's federal court. The numbers were brutal. Just $9.6 million in assets, but over $13 million in debt. Some reports even said the total reached $13.7 million. The once invincible superstar was now buried under the weight of his own empire. Hammer's bankruptcy list read like a who's who of creditors. More than 200 names filled the filing, everyone from government agencies to friends he'd borrowed from. The IRS came for over $750,000, plus another $100,000 for unpaid federal taxes from 1993 and 1994. The California Franchise Tax Board wanted $550,000 more, and Alameda County demanded $235,000 in back property taxes. Winterland Productions was owed $1 million for tour expenses, while Deion Sanders had loaned Hammer $500,000 backed by his car collection. Even his lawyers were waiting to get paid, $484,000 to Larry Blake, $450,000 plus $163,000 to Sarah McGuire, and nearly $200,000 to G. William Hunter. Every debt told the same story. The money was gone, and Hammer was drowning in what had once been his dream life.
Even Hammer's interior decorators, Ted and Janice Smith, were left unpaid. He owed them $110,000, and reports say their entire business collapsed because of it. During a June 1996 bankruptcy hearing, Hammer spoke directly to his creditors, explaining that his royalties were unpredictable. Sometimes a big check like $375,000 came in, but most of the time there was no steady income at all. He even admitted that he borrowed money from Deion Sanders just to avoid dealing with the banks and their endless red tape. By September 1998, his bankruptcy case had shifted from Chapter 11 reorganization to Chapter 7 liquidation, and the court later denied his discharge in 2002 after years of legal disputes. The symbol of his empire, that lavish Fremont mansion, became the ultimate casualty. After costing somewhere between $17 and $40 million in total, purchase and renovations combined, it was listed for $6.8 million and finally sold in August 1997 for just $5.3 million to Sterling SAT Television, a Singapore-based company. It was a massive loss, selling for a fraction of what he poured into it. Then the repossessions began. The cars, the jet, the helicopters, all gone. Even his horses were sold off. Everything that had once represented his climb from the streets of Oakland to the top of the entertainment world vanished piece by piece. Hammer would later speak on it with heartbreaking honesty. "I had too much money and not enough sense." It was a brutal truth, a lesson learned the hardest way possible and in full view of the world. What was once one of hip-hop's greatest success stories had become one of its most unforgettable cautionary tales. But unlike so many others who fell and disappeared, Hammer's story wasn't finished yet. This wasn't the end, not even close. Hammer's reinvention was just beginning. Most people who go through a financial crash like his never bounce back. They fade away as warning stories of fame gone wrong. But Hammer wasn't built like most people. That same drive that took him from selling baseballs in a parking lot to selling 18 million albums refused to die. By the late 90s, standing in the ruins of his empire, Hammer found a new purpose. He became an ordained Pentecostal minister, dedicating himself fully to faith, not as a PR move, but as real spiritual rebirth. He launched MC Hammer and Friends on the Trinity Broadcasting Network, spreading messages of redemption and hope, and even officiated celebrity weddings like Corey Feldman's in 2002 and Vince Neil's in 2005. He poured his energy into prison outreach and youth programs, preaching second chances, something he now lived firsthand. But his comeback wasn't only spiritual. Hammer's hustler instincts were still there, the same ones that built a multi-million-dollar empire from a $20,000 loan. He was down, but far from done. Hammer didn't just rebuild, he evolved. He reinvented himself as a Silicon Valley tech investor and advisor, not as a celebrity name or brand ambassador, but as someone who actually put in the work. He spent 10 to 12 hours a day learning, building, and collaborating with tech startups, proving that his hustle went beyond the stage lights. In 2007, Hammer co-founded dancejam.com, a dance-focused social network that raised $6.5 million in funding before being sold to Grind Networks in 2011. As chief strategy officer, he used his deep entertainment experience to help shape marketing and engagement strategies, bridging the worlds of music, tech, and social media like few others could. But where Hammer truly impressed was in his early tech investments. He backed companies that would later become giants: Twitter, now X, Square, Bump Technologies, Flipboard, and Pandora, where he even served as an advisor to the founder, offering insights on the future of streaming long before it took over the music industry. What makes this remarkable is his timing. These weren't safe bets on established companies. These were pre-IPO, early-stage ventures, the kind of investments that only those with true vision make. His stake in Twitter, made back when it was still finding its identity, has been especially praised, showing he understood where culture and technology were headed before most people even noticed the shift. In 2010, Hammer launched Alchemist Management, a firm that managed MMA fighters like Nate Marquardt, blending sports, business, and branding into one smart venture. Around the same time, he founded Wiredo, a deep search engine meant to rival Google by focusing on relationship-driven results. Though Wiredo never made it past beta testing, the attempt showed something powerful. Hammer's entrepreneurial drive never faded. Even after losing millions, he stayed bold, curious, and unafraid to take risks. By 2011, Hammer had become a social media powerhouse, earning the title of Social Media Marketer of the Year at the Gravity Summit, backed by over 2.6 million Twitter followers. He wasn't just posting for fame, he was using social media as a real business tool. By 2016, he took it even further, becoming a limited partner at Swan and Legend Venture Partners, solidifying his rise from performer to real tech investor. These days, Hammer consults for multiple companies, especially where AI meets music, a space he's deeply passionate about as artificial intelligence reshapes the industry. His posts often dive into AI partnerships with major labels like Universal Music and Stability AI, showing he's still tapped into cutting-edge innovation. But Hammer never fully left music behind. He dropped Family Affair, 1998, a gospel double album featuring Tupac Shakur, followed by Active Duty, 2001, a patriotic record released after 9/11 with profits going to charity. Later came Look, 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 2006, which sold 300,000 copies, and Dance Jam the Music, 2008-2009, tied to his tech venture. He even dropped fiery singles like Better Run Run, 2010, a diss aimed at Jay-Z, plus Raider Nation, 2013, and All in My Mind, 2014. Hammer also hit TV again, judging on Dance Fever 2003, starring in his A&E reality show Hammer Time 2009, and performing that unforgettable Psy mashup at the 2012 AMAs.
But by blending Gangnam Style with Too Legit to Quit, Hammer reintroduced himself to a whole new generation. By 2025, his net worth sits around $2 million, built from music royalties, performances, endorsements, and smart tech investments. It's not the $70 million empire of his glory days, but it's steady, sustainable wealth, earned with experience and humility. Now living in Tracy, California with his wife Stephanie, married since 1985, and their 5 kids, Hammer's far removed from the extravagant Fremont mansion that once defined both his rise and fall. This time, it's about balance, not excess. He's built a life grounded in diversified income and financial discipline, the exact wisdom that was missing in the 90s. By 2017, Hammer had finally cleared his old IRS debts, closing one of the hardest chapters of his life. Still, the past has a way of echoing back, like in 2025, when JP Morgan Chase sued him and You Can't Touch This LLC over missed payments on a 2023 Land Rover Defender seeking repossession. Even so, Hammer's story stands out. Despite every loss, every misstep, he didn't vanish or give up. His journey isn't tragic. It's proof of resilience, reinvention, and relentless drive. Yes, MC Hammer lost $70 million. Yes, he made some disastrous financial choices. And yes, his bankruptcy was one of the most public meltdowns in entertainment history. But calling it a tragedy misses the point, because tragedy means the end, and Hammer's story is anything but over. What makes Hammer's journey powerful is his resilience. It's about reinvention, turning failure into wisdom, chaos into clarity. He didn't just rebuild his finances, he rebuilt his purpose. What he has now isn't the wild excess of the past, it's stability, balance, and meaning. Today, Hammer stays connected and relevant, with over 405,000 Instagram followers and millions more on Twitter, now X. He posts daily about technology, faith, motivation, and culture, showing that influence doesn't always mean chart-topping hits. He doesn't need another diamond record to matter. His presence, voice, and perspective still carry weight. And when it comes to hip-hop history, his legacy is locked in. Hammer proved that rap could go mainstream, sell millions of albums, and still keep its spirit. He showed that high-energy performances, choreography, and visual storytelling had a real place in the genre. Artists like Will Smith, who followed the pop-rap path, built on the foundation Hammer created. Even Psy, whose global smash Gangnam Style took over the world, credited Hammer as an influence for showing how dance and music could cross cultures and break barriers. And his story, still unfolding. In 2024, the discovery of unreleased Death Row Records tapes in a Modesto storage unit hinted that there are still hidden chapters of Hammer's career waiting to be explored. Every few years, something new about his journey surfaces. Proof that MC Hammer's legacy isn't frozen in the past. His life defies the neat rise and fall storyline we often attach to celebrities. Hammer didn't just survive, he adapted, evolved, and kept moving forward. His story remains of faith, endurance, and unstoppable reinvention. That's the real MC Hammer. Not just the man in parachute pants shouting, "You can't touch this," and not just the cautionary tale of fame and bankruptcy. He's a complex, determined human being who tasted unimaginable success, hit rock bottom,
and then found redemption through faith, family, and reinvention. The lessons from Hammer's journey are timeless and painfully real. Diversify your income. Hire people who actually understand money. Live below your means, not right at the edge. Save and invest for the long run. Never mistake cash flow for real wealth. And always remember, fame fades, but smart habits and humility never go out of style. These ideas might sound simple, but when you watch someone lose $70 million learning them, they hit different. Hammer's story isn't a tragedy. It's a human story. It's about falling hard, getting back up stronger, and redefining what real success means. Not the money, not the cars, not the mansions, but the impact you leave on people and the purpose you carry forward. Hammer's life proves that failure doesn't define you. What you do next does. If you learned something from this story or just respect Hammer's wild ride from the top to redemption, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let's talk about what you think real success looks like. Because just like Hammer showed us, the comeback always tells the best story.